Welcome back to ScapeChatz, where the talking is as good as what's under the hood.
Welcome back to ScapeChatz, the podcast about the hit 90s television sci-fi series Farscape. My name is Allen, and I'm here once again with Magellan.
Hey, what's up?
I am very good, thank you. We watched...
It's not what I asked.
What's up with the temperature, global warming, gas prices, my
Thank
enjoyment
you.
of the series. Oh.
Oh.
Ooh.
You
fun.
got yourself out of that ditch really quickly.
Yes. I'm like 0 from holes, in that I'm very good at digging. We watched... Oh my god.
We watched Holes.
We watched Holes. Whoops, we watched the wrong show this week. I mean, we watched a movie. We watched 2 episodes of Farscape this week.
We sure did.
We watched... Let's just start by talking about the first one. Season 1, episode... I'm going to say 13.
You would be correct.
I would be theoretically correct, assuming that...
Yes,
yeah,
you
I'm
are.
correct.
Keeping in mind, as we mentioned last week, that this and the Flax were swapped.
Which is weird because both of them are kind of one-offy episodes, but this one is like more important, I would argue. Yeah.
Right, but they also don't really build on each other at all.
Oh, not at all. It's weird, but this episode is really weird, just to kind of get into it.
Oh, yeah.
But before that, I can tell you that it was written by David Kemper and Ro Hume, who wrote the story, and that David Kemper wrote the teleplay. And it was directed once again by my new favorite Farscape director, because he's the only name I can remember, Andrew Prowse.
So David Kemper is the man who would be king.
The what?
He becomes executive producer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
In
that.
season 2.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Also interesting that this episode aired July 23rd, 1999 in the US. And at this point, it's in the UK, it aired a whole year later. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, those are pretty consistent.
The one-sentence summary from the Farscape Wiki. Thanks again to the Farscape Encyclopedia Project for making this show really just what it is. An encounter with Zhaan's people may have detrimental effects on the Delvian, and the others are powerless to help when they become trapped in their own fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that was clearer in this episode.
The fantasies?
Yeah.
I think if we're really talking about what was and was not clear in this episode, that is by far one of the more clear elements for me.
Fair. Yeah, there's a lot of plots that are going on in this episode, and some of which I feel like could have functioned better as their own episodes. Like that fantasies thing, I think would have been more fun later.
Yeah, it felt crowded.
Because that's like my favorite thing in these types of shows that we watch. Buffy has multiple great everybody's trapped in their own nightmare or trapped in their own fantasies episodes.
Well, it has multiple of those episodes, but none of them are particularly great.
Right. Although I do love the Zeppo, but that's one character, one fantasy.
Not a fantasy episode.
Is it not? What's the one where
No.
Xander has sex with everyone?
Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered.
Right. Okay, then.
That's not a fantasy episode so much as everybody is being affected.
Oh, that's just
by
actual real
common
life.
spell. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Well, point is, this episode's...
Sorry.
You're good. No, I like that. That was good.
Actually...
You totally just, I'm actually new, but I asked for it, so it's fine. Asked.
Hold on, let me get up and do something.
Whoa, he's going to...
Keep talking
All right.
about the episode.
So, I was just going to say that this episode starts really weird, because it starts with a flashback, which is not common for this show. It starts with John Crichton in bed with a lady, a beautiful blonde woman, who we haven't seen from before, and she is talking about she took a job at Stanford, which I was asking Magellan earlier in the episode if he thought that was weird. When he comes back, he'll comment on that. She says, yeah, she took a job at Stanford in the medical research program, and Crichton was super bummed out, and he had an engagement ring for her, and he slides that under the bed because clearly that's not going to work out well.
That was a little much.
Yeah, it's a really easy, quick... It's a mini story, basically. This guy wanted to get married to this girl. She had a job. He no longer is going to marry her. So in that way, it's cool. I was saying before you left, how did you feel about the Stanford name drops in this episode?
Nah, whatever. I felt a little attacked, personally.
Yeah, because it's rarely used in positive terms in this, or not at all, really.
Mm-hmm. Have we mentioned that is the school that I attend?
And now we are. This is now canon.
Oh, this is how we're mentioned.
Yes.
They're putting it into the Farscape Encyclopedia Project as we speak.
We could at some point find ourselves on the Farscape Encyclopedia Project.
Let's not get too big for these issues.
You never know, man. Anything is possible. So yeah.
Whenever I hear the idiom, too big for your britches, I always picture somebody with britches that are too big.
Which is not what that means.
That's the opposite.
Yeah, I also imagine it with big pants, because it's too big for your... It's, like, grammatically weird. I don't know, but I totally get what you mean. Enough about britches. We find out that girl's name is Alex, and that is apparently... Is that a flashback, or is that just a dream that's not anything real?
That was... I think the idea is that they were all having flashback dreams.
Okay.
So it was a flashback... Like, you can think of it as a flashback, but it's a flashback that he is experiencing as well as us, the viewer.
That makes sense. Because there are, this episode's got a lot of interesting flashbacks in it. But then he gets out of bed because... This is actually a kind of a weird way to start the episode, if this is the one that I'm thinking of. Oh, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. The way the second one starts is hilarious. But Moya's entering Starburst, which is a thing where... I guess it's like the spaceship equivalent of her having, like, contractions.
Well, I don't remember why she did in this one.
I think Pilot says she thought she picked up a distress call from another pregnant Leviathan and was attempting to answer. That's it, exactly what it is.
That's what it was.
And then Rigel is like, I had a crazy dream about the last time I had sex with one of my wives. With one of his wives, which was a great little moment.
Yeah, and then
Dargo.
John Crichton was like, one of your wives? Nice! And it's like, come on.
John Crichton's a huge douche, so I'm on the anti-John Crichton squad after this pair of episodes. There you go, I said it.
Really?
Maybe. We'll talk about it. I'm not firmly there, but I'm leaning.
I think John Crichton was a pretty progressive fellow for 99, is the thing.
Oh, yeah. I think he's coming from an archetype of douchiness and ascending beyond it with his communication skills and sharp wit, but
yes,
he doesn't always. Sometimes he just says things that are a little off. Dargo's dream is big. Yeah, so that's Rigel's dream, and then Dargo says he dreamt of his wife on the last night before she was murdered. So that we find out that the connecting thread is that everybody saw their lover before the last time that they saw them.
Yes, all the men did.
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Which actually is important, because this is a Zhaan episode, and she's all about femininity and...
Although Zhaan did see the guy that she
That's
killed.
what I'm saying. That's why I was, like, confused.
So she saw when she was with him. So then did Aaron just see nothing?
Which is, like, a little sad if you really think about it. I like to think Pilot saw something. I want to read Pilot fanfiction really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Zhaan at first says, I didn't have a weird dream at all. And then later she's like, I totally had the exact same type of dream that y'all did. They get a signal from a Delvian, who's like, I want to meet this Zhaan fella. She seems pretty cool. And so they go down to this weird planet, which immediately triggered my I love episodes of Farscape that take place off the ship. And so that was basically where the rest of the episode took place, mostly.
I want to push you on that love when we get to the second episode.
Yeah. Well, I am going to... whatever. We'll talk about the second episode. Zhaan says that her use of deception continues to trouble her. Oh, yeah, because the whole thing is like, this crazy lady whose name is Taline, I guess, is using, like, mind control stuff on her, and she can tell. So she's like, hey, stop doing mind control influence stuff on me, please. Yeah. They go inside the weird ship. Taline shows them the food store, and then there's that really fun little bit of world building where she just goes like, eat everything. No, please eat a lot, because everything you eat regrows, and if you don't eat it, it just dies. So go nuts. And then, they don't show anyone eating, but actually, I think, does Rigel eat? Is he all down on there?
No, I think he was on the ship.
I think that would have been a good opportunity to remind us that, hey, the creators decided after playing with the puppet for a while that it's fun to make Rigel eat and be fat. Mm-hmm. Zhaan asks why she was brought here, says Taline invaded her soul last night. That's, There's a lot of people invading souls and, like, getting intimate with each other mentally. Telepathy, intimacy, which is a running theme in this episode. I don't need to go through the whole plot. Basically, Zhaan finds out through some clever stuff that this lady Taline is trying to use her cool Delvian priestess powers. Right. Is it to overthrow the government?
Yeah, that's a good question.
This is the kind of common complaint that Magellan and I both had.
Here's the best way that I'm understanding it. This is a Delvian sect that separated from the home world to live on this planet, whatever it is, to learn the ways of this specific teacher guy or something. The, like, old guy who's crazy.
Yeah.
But then he went crazy because he tried to do too much cool stuff and he, like, turned evil.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. And so what she wants to do is, I guess, there was something in there about how, like, since their leader is crazy, it makes them crazy too.
Yeah.
And so she wants to kill him so that they aren't crazy anymore. And then she wants to go back and overthrow the government.
Yes.
Is that what you got?
I knew that there was a crazy guy that was making everybody crazy. And also the, like, liberally... we use the word crazy liberally here, and I don't like the way that... I don't know. the concept
that's what they're saying. Like, they're saying that someone's going mad.
Yes. What I'm getting at is, like, the way that this show handles what is alien craziness is really weird to me, because if insanity is a form of mental illness, then, like, Delvian insanity is, like, a completely different thing where you can control it in some respects, and it is a tangible issue that you can address, like, oh, I got crazy red eyes, that means I got the Delvian madness, which is an interesting sci-fi concept, but also is weird compared to what human insanity is, I guess.
Well, then maybe it's not you don't need to think of it as a mental condition, but like a physiological condition.
That's a good point. And I think it's weird. I don't necessarily dislike it. There's a lot of things on the show that I have trouble with just because they're very different than what I expect them to be. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what that is. Yeah. There's a decent amount about that crazy guy. I guess, are you thinking of the guy named Tuzak, that guy?
Yeah.
He approaches Crichton saying he's here because of him, calling him a peacekeeper. Crichton's like, nah, dude, I'm not a peacekeeper. And then the guy says that he himself is crazy, and then he gets mad at Zhaan for carrying a weapon. And then she gets kicked off the ship. So she's no longer on the Delvian planet. Zhaan asks Crichton to help her come to a decision. So there's a lot of good character pairings in this episode, and in the second episode, that we haven't gotten in a while. So we actually got some good Zhaan-Crichton discussion, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Mainly stuff about sexuality and backstory and how their pasts connect in weird ways. There's a lot of mumbo-jumbo in this episode that is fairly hard to follow. Talene warns that this capacity is less than level 1. Sorry, I'm just going through the summary trying to pick out the cool parts.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, we find out that Zhaan's lover, so Talene shows John Crichton the scene that Zhaan had in her dream, which is her being with her lover, whose name is Batal, and she's with him, and she's like, oh, you're so cool, and then he's like, thanks, I know, and then she's like, we find out that he killed a lot of people, and so did she give him her Delvian rage or something?
I don't know if they explain exactly how it works, but basically she can kill people with her mind.
Yes, and she kills him, which is what gets her sent to prison?
Yes.
So there we go. Now we have, I think everybody's, do we have everybody's reasons for me?
Yeah, assuming that Rigel's telling the truth.
Right, assuming that Rigel's telling the truth, is the ship that they were on, is Moya a prison ship, is what I'm asking.
I think so, yeah.
So Pilot is the captain of a prison ship.
He's not the captain, he's the
pilot.
He's an organism that was paired with it because he can communicate between the ship and the people.
Okay, so he doesn't necessarily work for the peacekeepers.
No, he is like a symbiotic organism with Moya.
Okay.
That's where he lives.
Oh, so he just goes wherever people take him, he's just part of you can kind of put him and Moya together, you can bunch them together into one Uber character, I guess. And we have, we have Dargo, we have Crichton, obviously, we have Zhaan?
I mean, she's just a peacekeeper.
Oh, right. And then, we saw that as well. That was in the pilot. So that's cool. That was nice to, finally, 13 episodes in, finally feel like we know where everybody started off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that wasn't a bigger deal.
Yeah, it didn't have to. Yeah, exactly. They could have spent a lot of just the first episode being here's this person and this person, but they doled it out just enough and then it's now it's done. Okay, now we can just continue to do fun adventure stories.
Right.
There's lots of flashbacks, lots of... Crichton starts seeing Alex on the actual Delvian ship, which is weird. I liked the way that he is he just accepts his little bit of madness, and he talks to her he's never what's going on? I don't understand this. He's just hey, Alex, what's up?
Well, because they're changing his memories.
Oh, is that how it works? Oh, okay, I understand.
Yes. So what's her face?
The evil Delvian lady with the cool white hair?
Yeah.
Talene, yes.
Well, Talene, thank you. Her thing, or one of the things she can do is she can alter people's memories. And I'm assuming that her lady friend can do it as well. Or at least her lady friend can create illusions.
So, was
dream
Alex
illusions.
Actually the lady friend, but illusion to look like Alex?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, same actress. Do you know?
Really?
I believe so.
That's interesting. So she just did Delvian.
I think that's Ben Browder's wife.
Really?
I'm not gonna say that for sure until I look it up right now, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
Hasko and Lorana are the two people that she sends to attack their minds. I think it's Lorana is the one you're thinking of. Maybe? We'll get to the trivia, because I didn't look at the trivia for either of these episodes, because I'm getting more and more weary about things like spoilers. So yeah, he starts seeing her, and they change his memories to think that she was actually on the ship with him when he came into space, and so he's assuming that she's been with them all along.
No, I might be lying.
You're a liar.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I was so upset.
I just remember reading somewhere that his wife shows up multiple times as different characters.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mentioned Talion's cool white hair earlier, and there's a fun bit of trivia about that, but just, we learned that Delvians have hair, and that Zhaan is just weird, which factored into Virginia Hay feeling uncomfortable about this episode, and also the fact that they really don't, it's not easy to do like a bunch of Delvians in one episode, because that's a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
Which it really shows. Like, a lot of this episode is, the color palette of this episode is so blue, because there's just so many people coming in and out of frame, like, on the ship, that are just Delvian, and you're like, well, okay, this is...
Yeah.
It all starts to look kind of samey at some point.
Yeah, I thought it was a gorgeous episode, though.
Oh yeah, the architecture of that ship is so cool, like the...
Super cool, yeah.
The tree, and just the stuff that's, like, the little world-building moments, like the infinite food, and there's all these little, like, details that make Delvians seem really interesting. So what was up with the scene where Aaron is with Dargo, and then her pulse rifle falls down and breaks? Is that her nightmare?
So, yes, I guess. Yeah, so the thing that was happening there is they were just all being trapped in various illusions that would keep them from interfering, which I guess now is seeming inconsistent, because for some of them it was a matter of fulfilling fantasies, and for some of them it was a matter of capitalizing on
fears,
insecurities, or fears.
Yeah.
Because Dargo's was that he thought that his son was there. Right?
Well, I finally remembered his name. His name is Jothi.
Which is not
not a great name.
Jothi.
Yeah, it is great hearing it from that actor. Jothi.
I just did a great Dargo
You really
impression.
did. I was impressed. And then, I like... See, there's like little bits of symbolism that you can pick apart from each of their nightmare dreams. Rigel appears to shrink, which is like, okay, he's got an inferiority complex and a size problem.
Yeah.
Dargo's is just too simple. It's just like, I want to see my son.
Well, and Erin's bothered me too, because that's been her thing every single time, is that she's afraid that she can't fix stuff.
Right.
And we've gone over that, you know.
But it continues to be
plot.
her fear, though. She hasn't conquered it.
I know, but she's moving in the direction of conquering it. It just... My thing is, it didn't teach us anything new about Erin, which is, that's the moment where you should be teaching us something new. Is like, oh no, her fear is manifesting.
Right, and I think the gun falling apart is partly I don't know how to fix things. If something broke with me, even though I feel like I'm a really badass survivalist, I don't know how to fix things. I don't know how to be independent. But that also ties into this like feeling of loss of control. Like I guess
that's true. Just the idea of her being without a weapon.
Yeah, her gun is her best friend. She always has it holstered, and then when it falls, it just shatters, and she can't put it back together, and no one's going to help her. It's like, well, now what am I if not a gun and a leadership personality?
All right,
so
I can buy that.
Yeah, that's me digging. That the show doesn't hint at enough of that, I feel like. There's then one of my favorite effects from the episode. It's kind of a hit or miss. Like, you either love it or hate it. The Zhaan and Talien joining scene.
The unity.
Unity, which is a thing that I guess we're learning about for the first time this episode. Delvians have the ability to, like, fuse emotionally with someone else, but, like, is it not physically?
No, I think it's like a soul thing.
Yeah, so it's not a Dragon Ball Z, like, we are now Zhanin sort of thing.
No.
It's more...
I think they, like, go into another plane of existence.
Yeah, and then they get each other's memories, and they can switch back and forth. Isn't there that scene at the end where they're, like, in someone else's body or something? Or one person's in someone else? I might be crazy.
No, I don't think so.
There's a lot of nonsense in this episode. Point is, the only other time that happened in this episode is actually really cool, because right there it's like, oh no, Talien knows everything about Zhaan now. This is not cool. Forced fusion. Or like, she tells her it's for the greater good. There's a lot of talk about greater good in this episode, and then the second fusion is Zhaan and John Crichton, actually, which is interesting. We usually don't see the Earthling get that intimate with with a space concept, a sci-fi concept like that.
Right, but I feel like maybe it's just me, but is it a trope that sci-fi shows will have things where it's like, oh my god, this is 1,000,000 orgasms at once? Yes. I feel like that somewhere in there is like a deep human fear that the orgasm is not the best thing. You know?
Yeah, and that it's something that can just be done, and it does it. It tarnishes.
Because like so much of our existence is predicated on its value, and then to be like, whoa, but alien orgasms. You wouldn't believe them. That's just my...
And then he can come back to Earth and be like, you guys won't believe what I did.
Well, but it's sort of... I don't know. I find it bleak.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever a sci-fi show has a better pleasure experience.
Oh, I kind of see what you're saying. That's complex, but I kind of like it.
Anyway, what did you think of the concept of unity? The way it was visualized, or just what it was?
I mean, the visual is limited enough that it doesn't feel like, oh, bad effects, here we go. Because it's just two physical bodies looking at each other, and that's kind of smushing for a couple seconds. And then all of the cool magic stuff happens internally. So it's like, oh, now we know everything about each other. We can empathize better. We are practically the same person now.
Yeah.
So I like that. I thought that was really interesting. What did you think about it?
I thought it was a great idea, and I thought that the way that they were visualizing it was abstract but appropriate for the concept. What I will say is that having so much of the plot center around unity and around the transfer of abstract concepts between beings made for a really confusing episode.
And exactly, I think that's what gets at it, is like, there's a lot of illusions that we, if we're not paying attention, don't immediately understand. I didn't understand why Alex was on the ship, even though I knew she wasn't there. I didn't get the full context of that until we talked about it. And it's, what does post-Unity look like? What do we look any similar? Do we just think similarly? It is it's a weird concept to wrap your head around, and centering a whole episode on it.
And just the I don't know, the mechanics of like having. Are you there?
Yes.
You were cutting out.
You're good.
Okay. The mechanics of like having an ability and then being able to take an ability don't really make sense. And there were allusions to the idea of like there's power levels.
Oh yeah. There's like, they number them.
Yeah, and by the worst moment by far in the episode was at the end where John Crichton is like chopping the tree, their root thing. And then Talene is like, no, I'm going to kill you with my mind. And then Zhaan like stops her from killing him. And Zahn's like, I've ascended to like a level 10, so I can protect now.
Yes, you have unlocked a new ability. Protect!
Which is so arbitrary.
It's so RPG, is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you are now higher level, you can do you have new abilities, what's your new passive bonus?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't really get why Talene should be able to do that. If Zhaan is like more powerful, why she should be able to do Unity and then just take a power, and why that makes Zhaan confront the evil within her. And the plot facts were extremely arbitrary.
I think my main complaint with the like back half of the episode is that it never did what I hoped that this episode would do, which is that I hoped it would solve or explicate Zahn's rage situation. Like, it's barely about that. And it's about that in that it is a great power to her that she doesn't want to share with people, or she does want to share with certain people, but when she merges with Crichton, he's like, oh, it's like 10 years of great sex at once. And then she's like, by the way, don't take my rage. I need that. So how do we get to the point where he is chopping down the spirit tree? Is he just angry?
That is after he like fixes her.
So how does he fix her?
Well, so we have, after Talene takes Zahn's power to murder people with her mind somehow, this sort of unhinges. With it, she takes Zahn's ability to control her rage because she needs that in order to use Zahn's power, because otherwise she'll go insane.
Yes. I'm just intently listening, like I'm sure most listeners are.
So that has all happened, and so Zhaan at this point is red-eyed and angry about the situation.
And aware of it. Like Crichton comes up to her and she's like, I'm furious. You should leave. I'm not in a good state.
Right. Because it's still her, and that's a part of her that she had been able to contain, and that she'd worked her entire span in prison to suppress, essentially.
Right.
And now she's like, I want to take revenge again, because it sounds fun.
Because revenge is awesome.
And John Crichton is trying to get a handle on this situation by talking about it, as is his penchant. And that is failing him. And meanwhile, this Alex Mirage keeps yelling at him like, oh, you care too much about Zhaan and whatever, and being the most annoying. Like, I'm glad I knew that she wasn't a real character, because if a real character acted like that, it's so not a character that I would care about, basically.
Right.
But it was obviously not a real person, and that was kind of the point, is that she was being demanding in an unnecessary way. Yeah. And so what was the name of that other Delvian who was doing that?
The Mirage Delvian?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's going to take me a second.
Okay, it doesn't.
That lady, yeah. The female minion Delvian.
I'll call her Hair 2.
That's good.
So, Hair 2, I don't even remember what I was going to say about her at this point.
Lorana. It's kind of a sexy name. I'm into it.
So Lorana is trying to get Crichton to leave.
Yes.
The place. Go back to Moya and get everyone to just leave.
So that they can take Zhaan and do all their nasty stuff.
Yeah. Although...
guys, you may be...
So here's what I'm... This is me remembering it from a couple days ago, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
So the first time that Talene goes in, she gets the power to kill people in her mind.
Yes.
But then she's like, I have this power, but here's the problem. I can't control it. I need to get unity with Zhaan again to get her power to control it.
Yes. Which is
right?
kind of arbitrary. Yes, that's exactly right.
But didn't Zhaan lose that?
Ugh.
Because I remember when Zhaan was red-eyed, she's like, I'm going to do unity again. And Crichton's like, are you going to kill her? And she's like, yeah, I'm going to kill her. So she had lost her power to control it.
So where's Talene going to get it from if Zhaan doesn't have it?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. That's the thing about this episode, is it's just... It's like
debating fantasy power, like magic in like a...
It's all like metaphysics and philosophy, yes, is the thing.
Exactly.
Anyway, so let's just get back to the plot. Yep. Talene kills the old guy.
Yep.
Sorry.
Bummer.
Whoops.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Crichton
gets mad. There isn't really a lot of explanation for why he's mad. I think he's just like going a little nuts.
So Crichton, Alex is like yelling in his ear, and then he's like, forget this, I gotta help Zhaan. And he's like, of course... What I'll do is have unity with her, and I'll fix her from the inside.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yes. Doesn't make a lot of sense logically.
Insane. And the way that he gets her to do it, which this plays into a segment that I want to commence for every episode, which is the translator microbes of the week.
Oh, yeah. John's translator update of the week. Oh.
Yeah, and luckily both episodes explicitly referenced the translator microbes, which I was so happy about.
Especially the second one.
But so in this one, the way that John Crichton gets her to do unity with him is he's like, hey Zhaan, do unity with me. And she's like, no, I would get nothing from that. Why would I do that?
That's not a fair exchange.
And he's like, oh, are you chicken? And then he starts clucking like a chicken.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, did your translator microbes pick that up?
Oh, I remember this scene, and then I think I might, either you mentioned it or I texted you something like, does that make sense to her? Like,
right.
What did she...
I think she gets the tone is mocking, and he was making a mocking sound. I don't think you need to know what a chicken is to understand that clucking is a mocking sound.
Yes.
But I liked that they referenced it.
There's a...
And
sorry, go ahead.
So that's enough to get her to do it. Him being like, what, are you scared?
She's like, fine.
Which was ridiculous. And then they have unity, and she's like, look out for the bad stuff inside. And he's like, whoa, what's that? And she's like, it's the bad stuff inside. And he's like, okay, now look inside me. And look at how cool I think you are. Doesn't that make you happy? And then that's enough. Which is really sweet.
Yeah, because it's not really romantic, sweet. But it's kind.
Yeah, it's like, I really respect you. And if you look and see how much I really respect you, it'll make you respect yourself. Enough to control this thing, which is cool, and that's like such a Farscape way of resolving the conflict. Yeah. So that part I liked, and then it's like, well, all right, now we got to do the rest of it. And so he goes out there and he starts chopping their root down, which the root does something, I guess.
The Farscape wiki page for the spirit tree is just the picture of John Crichton cutting down the spirit tree. There's no text.
It's just, I think it just like gives power to something. Yeah,
totally. It's a weirdly thin white tree that extends up the center of the ship. It's a cool visual.
Yeah, and so he's chopping it, and they're like, don't chop that. And he's like, I gotta chop it. And then Talene tries to mind murder him, and then Zhaan has leveled up so she can stop it. And then, how does it ultimately... Because like Talene's people turn on her, right?
Yes.
Because they had grown skeptical of her. Oh, okay. I remember.
Are you talking about the Pao stuff?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason that Crichton was able to pick helping Zhaan was that what's-her-face, I forgot her name again, Hair 2.
Yep, Lorana,
thank you, told John that it was a fiction, what was going on. And that's my favorite part of that. Go ahead.
Just going to continue the plot, but go ahead.
Oh, my secret favorite part of the episode is her and her relationship with John Crichton, because it's clear that she's like become attached to him because she's been playing the part of somebody that was so important in his memory. And then he also has become weirdly attached to her because she knows at this point so much about him.
Like, she knows a thing that nobody else on the show knows about him at this point.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And they have that moment when he's leaving, when he's walking away, and he, like, stops in front of her and, like, stands there for a while. And I think he says, like, everything's going to be okay or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That was a good scene.
But that was cool.
The show does a really good job of making the, like, seemingly unimportant characters really interesting.
Yeah.
Continuing with the gender-swapped guy from the Flax. It's that same idea.
Yeah. It's so good at just surgically inserting pathos into these ephemeral characters.
Right.
Which, yeah, I find really impressive. Because that could easily just be like...
She could just be a henchman, like a minion who's like, you got me.
She's just a henchman, and could be like, I don't believe in what What's-Her-Face is doing anymore, so I'm going to set you free from the mirage. And then he's like, I was in a mirage! But instead it's this thing of like, I know about your memories, and I know that you're like a good man, and all this respect. And he's like, hey, next time you're gonna look for memories, why don't you ask first, toots, and then move on.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this show finds cool ways to tweak things like that into fresh, character-focused moments.
And those are the moments that I appreciate in the show. And the last couple scenes I loved because they finally felt like they were meaning something and giving Zhaan something to come out of the episode with.
Mm-hmm.
So we've learned at this point that the title of Pau, which is what Zhaan is like High Priestess, basically.
Yeah.
And she has these robes that she wears, like these like, they look like yellow shoulder armor or something. Mm-hmm. She has those, but she leaves them back on the planet to give them to Talene. Is that correct?
I don't know. Sure.
Essentially, though, it's one of those end of Farscape beautiful little lines between Crichton and someone else. And this time it's Crichton and Zhaan, and he's like, those are years of like respect and work that you're leaving behind. And all that training that you worked on. And she just basically says, like, nah, those were the best years of my life. Those were the best. Or she says,
Wasn't that her and Aaron, or am I crazy?
It says Crichton here.
Oh, okay. I'm crazy.
There wasn't enough Aaron in this episode.
That's true.
She says, yeah, those are the best cycles of my life, and I'll cherish them forever. I just don't need the artifacts of them. And I guess the way that they dealt with Talene is that when she stops her with her level 10 shaman powers, Talene's like, oh no, I'm out of here. But she's not dead. She just like, they say something along the lines of, she tells Talene it's over, and with her father gone, she's needed to tend his orchard. Oh, because her crazy dad is dead, so she has to go do that stuff. Mm-hmm. So the crazy old guy was Talene's dad?
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah. Either her dad, or it's like a metaphorical, like he's the father of this sect. But I think it was literally her dad.
So that's basically the plot of the episode, and then it cuts to there's, again, cute music fades into the stupid credit music.
I thought the fade was a little more elegant this time.
Was it bad in the second one? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I think it was okay in both.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
There were a couple lines from this episode that I really liked. Mostly the B and C plot lines. There's a conversation between Dargo and Rigel early on where Dargo's like, something Crichton said is disturbing me. And then Rigel's like, finally! I've been saying that since he arrived. Which I want to watch like a Rigel Dargo exclusive episode.
You kind of got that a little bit in the second one.
In the second, not as much as I wanted. Not enough. Sure. The back half of it totally is. Rigel, again, I like my wife's pregnant and my ship's cold to the touch. That way my feet stay warm and my slumber is uninterrupted. Oh, yeah. I remember reading that line and being like, or hearing that and being like, fucking, someone is so proud of that. So good. It's the 1-2 punch of the beginning of it is funny. Like, I like my wife's pregnant and cold to the touch. Like, good one. That way my feet stay warm, my slumber is uninterrupted. Like, ooh! Ooh! Backstage audience gets a an ooh if this was a audience hosted sitcom. And then Zhaan with the wives, plural, big fella! High fives, Rigel. And then Crichton says something, I remember this. This was the 10 Years of Great Sex. It's like Disney on acid. It's cute. Do you want to read the background info for this episode? Because I can't read it.
This is Virginia Hayes' favorite. She's talking about how it gave sort of more dimension and strength to Zhaan as a character, which I kind of noticed in the second episode, actually.
Totally.
Which is pretty cool. Something about, that's not really relevant.
Should really screen these a little bit before, so we don't just get...
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that I was going to be doing this.
You're good.
Oh, good. The original idea for Unity was to use a prosthetic effect to show two hands, one inside the other.
Yeah.
Which sounds gross.
That's some Cronenberg shit.
Yeah. This is David Kemper's first solo script.
Good work.
And, the makeup people got really mad that they had to make so many Delvians.
It's hard. It's all scales.
8 makeup artists were needed to create all the Delvians.
That's a lot of makeup artists.
Yeah.
I'm going to start reading some of these if you don't. If you don't, as if you aren't. Go ahead. No,
An internet chat before the episode.
Oh, I've heard this one. This one's amazing.
Had Ben Browder promising that the question of boxers or briefs would be answered by Crichton, but he admitted that he thought that Crichton should, quote, go commando. Okay, whatever.
I just like internet chat in 1999. That is great to me.
And there were discussions about going to Delvia in a later episode, but it never really went anywhere.
Did that never happen at all?
Correct.
Oh, man. I guess it makes sense. Like, in so many of these stories, it's an easy trope to just be like, oh, and now we're on their planet. And it's like, what are their people like? I think KOTOR does that. Knights of the Old Republic, if people don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's that's an easy script, I think, more than it is a hard script to write an interesting story for.
Mm-hmm.
Any more?
No, that's it.
What an episode. Yeah, it's just... This has been, 45 minutes of us just trying to pick apart what happened, which I think that's really what the episode was a lot of things happening, and then not a ton of payoff. Like, okay, we learned a lot. We learned about Zhaan, the viewer, and Zhaan has developed as a character, which is great. This season has been a lot of forward momentum for everyone, so that's really great to see. A little disappointed by the dream nightmare fantasies, but again, that's a thing that they can totally flush out in a future episode, and I kind of hope they do, because I think there's still a rich vein of that to come out.
Yeah.
And I think that's that episode. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk about the second episode that we watched this week?
I surely do.
Do you want?
You know what that episode's called?
I do.
I also know what it's called.
Yeah. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of ScapeChatz' Moya Bag, where we read your feedback and comment on your comments and answer your questions. I'm actually here with Magellan today. Hi, Magellan.
Hey.
I believe we haven't had you since the first one of these, so this is exciting, because we actually got questions this week.
It's as if I'm a special guest on this show.
Special guest, the guy who's in this all the time. He's a busy man. Sometimes
hey, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. I'm a big fan of the show. I listen to it every week.
Don't forget to plug your stuff at the end. We know we like to give our guests that luxury of being able to plug their stuff. So as usual, we actually got a decent amount of feedback this week, more than the last couple, and all of it that I see came from the subreddit thread at r/Farscape, which you can always find at reddit.com/r/Farscape. And this is in the thread for episode 6. And the first comment we have here is actually a comment and question from user The Locket. I'm just going to read it, and then we can give it a little thing. Another great podcast this week. Thanks. I had a thought on your comments about Crichton using references that only he and the audience understands. His Crichton-isms. It's almost like when I'm talking to my friends from overseas, I'll get into a groove of joking around and will say something that I thought was funny, only to be met with silence and then what does that mean? I forget that references that are familiar to me locally are completely unheard of there. I then have to try to explain, most of the time unsuccessfully. It could also be that Crichton continues to use his obscure references as a way to feel somewhat superior to the crew. They're always reminding Crichton that his knowledge and fighting prowess are sorely lacking, so his earthling colloquialisms are a way to feel as if he has some knowledge of which they are unaware, leaving them to be the ignorant party. Another thought is that Crichtonisms are a way of reminding him of his humanity. He has nothing from Earth to connect to in this otherworldly realm other than his IASA suit and his ship, so he uses Earth verbiage to remain connected to the life he used to know and hopes to return to. What do you guys think? Magellan?
I think that's a great point. The whole thinking about Crichtonisms as more than just stupid jokes that the writers want to throw in, which I think is how we've, at least in these early episodes, that's how we talk about them. Like, he said Wile E. Coyote, what an asshole. But do we say asshole on this show?
I mean, we cuss plenty, so if you're worried about asshole, then...
I really do feel like I'm on a totally different program. Like, the rules are totally changed.
We want you to be comfortable here. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, so I think Crichtonisms obviously should be considered a part of his character that are more than just this sort of authorial fiat that allows him to make references and jokes to the audience, right? I don't know.
Right.
I think the whole idea of him trying to use them as a way of empowering himself with respect to his crewmates seems a little like reading too much intention into it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to posit why I think he uses these Crichtonisms, I think it's to remind himself that Earth exists. So this second point is more, I think, compelling to me, that it's a way of remembering what is human. It's kind of like if you have a dream that was really detailed, and you want to remember it, then when you wake up, you like force yourself to try to remember the details and write them down or something like that. That, I think, is what the Crichtonisms are. Is he is forgetting, Earth is fading, and he wants to kind of hold on to it. Or like the way I'm thinking about it now is like in high school, if you have a crush on a girl, and then you go on summer vacation and you don't see her, and you forget what her face looks like going into the next school year.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that's him and Earth. Is he he has this hazy thing of what Earth is, and he's trying to use these specific details to keep it in focus, but he's forgetting its face, I guess.
I like that reading a lot. I actually also agree with, I believe it's Emir from Saturn's post, which is a reply. This comment got a decent number of good replies. And Emir from Saturn said, "This is what I believe," and they quoted part of it. But they said, "Crichton doesn't seem insecure enough for the other explanation to work." So this idea that Crichton is trying to feel better, like there's no hints that Crichton is in any way not a inherently like trying to be a nice guy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so to say that he is speaking with his weird colloquialisms, I think it's, he's holding on to his humanity, and he's holding on to the thing that at this point in the show is still constantly in his mind. And we hear that in the theme song, and we hear how he just wants to go back. And what I'm really excited about is when we get to the human reaction, which is next week, and how that whole episode kind of spins this idea on its head. And I think that's one of my favorite discussions that we did, just to kind of pat myself on the back a little bit. And from then on, I think that Crichton starts to kind of turn the dial down on all of the Earth references, because he has come to rethink what Earth was to him and what is important to him. So that becomes a recurring theme of like what is important to you when you're not in your home place, and what becomes your new home place. So this is a really good thing for us to be seeding now as the show goes on. I
think that brings up an interesting point, that the nature of why he's making these references could change over the course of the show, because definitely a human reaction marks this point where he becomes a lot more humble and more interested in the thought that, hey, maybe this is a place I'm going to stay for a long time. Because in the first set of episodes, the first 14 or whatever, he does have some kind of frustration with the crew and with his lot in the crew. So I still don't necessarily see Crichtonisms as a way to purposefully raise himself above everybody else, but it does make sense to me that he would want his own things that he knows. Like, he would want to be an expert in something in this environment. Although still we see that he's pretty mechanically skilled in the first few episodes in, Peking Tech Girl or other things like that. So, yeah, that's still shaky. But definitely as we move forward, the references are more and more almost like honoring and memorializing Earth a little bit, as opposed to trying to force Earth stuff into his new environment. I think, his Crichtonisms take on a sense of humility as things go.
Totally. And the last thing I was going to say is, in these last episodes, as I've been editing them, I've noticed that you specifically have been coming back to this idea that we keep forgetting that Crichton was an astronaut, and that he was somebody who's very intelligent and in control. And I believe it's Euronymous comments in here also that I never saw it as awkward writing. I always thought it was pretty clear that Crichton is gradually losing his sanity over the course of the show because of all the insane shit he gets put through, and that the Earth cultural references were simultaneously a reflection of him losing his grip on his sanity and a way for him to hold on to it for dear life. And Crichton's mental health is a thing that we're going to explore real deep in season 2.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting that you are noticing that from now. I'm assuming that most of the people commenting here have watched the whole show and know where that goes.
Yeah. I think,
but
it may be a little, not anachronistic, but whatever that word would translate to in the context of a show, it doesn't fit to read insanity directly into these early episodes, I think, because I think he's still got all his faculties around him, and he's grappling with like, oh, this is a totally new place, but I don't think he's falling into insanity yet until we hit season 2. And then, yes, definitely, that is what's going on.
Super duper.
Yeah.
And then Snowdrifts real quickly points out that they're just trying to explain why we are constantly, like, the translator microbes of the week is still a thing at this point in the show.
Are people upset about that?
No, nobody else actually mentions it, but what Snowdrifts mentions here is that they used to think that the Earth sayings were very out of place, but the aliens all have their alienisms as well. And so they say, if you don't know what Crichton's referencing, it doesn't sound any different than when an alien says, like a glibglack or in a fruit dupe or whatever. So, like, colloquialisms probably sound like nonsense both ways, which is one read on it. I missed the translator micros thing of the week. I guess the show has gotten good enough with its language and its efficiency in communication that isn't even relevant anymore.
I don't think that's the case. I think I just ran out of new ones. Like, I think certain ways of that thing not making sense recur. It's not like I retired that segment, and people listening now in episode 7 are gonna keep hearing it for a while yet. But where we are now, we're coming from the future towards the end of season 2, and it's not as important anymore. But I think that whole segment was, like, I think of IET as the fundamental quintessential example of that, because it was an episode that was so bland and detestable on its own that I needed to invent something to talk about, and that's so not necessary as you progress through the show.
Yeah, the show, I guess that's more what it is that the show becomes interesting enough that you don't need to rely on a single, like, recurring like nitpick, that you can just kind of, there's so much more to talk about now.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for having me on the little show you do within this show, the Vatican City of ScapeChatz. It's like its own sovereign country in here.
And then we have a pope too, and it's me.
I love I don't mean to, like, talk about how great our show is, but I think this is such a weird, fascinating thing that, like, the old show is going on outside of this weird oasis, and we're, like, peeking inside. I think it's just so weird and good.
We didn't plan for this at all, too, which is interesting, because now we recorded these with the intention that, like, oh, we'll eventually put these out, and we kept putting it off, and we finally, around whatever episode, we started catching up, and that has led to me, like, the two of us actually re-listening to them and being like, oh, man, we were so off base back then, or we really, like, dropped that segment, or we were different back then, and it's great to see how the show has evolved, and I actually think that this whole, like, going back in time in the middle of the show and then going back to the past kind of, like, fits in with the theme of the show in a way, or, like, feels like something that would have happened in an episode.
Yeah, definitely.
I really like that about the Moy Bag, and I like that the name came about as, like, an accidental improv joke, and then it's just now this is the name of the mid segment. All
right. Well, that's enough of talking about how wonderful we are.
Yeah, I mean, these people listen. They already know. And the thing is, they already know. The thing is also, the other like sort of negative about the way that we do the show is that I every once in a while get comments that are like, "How does the show sound this bad?" or something, or like, "How did you guys not, like, edit out this awkward moment?" And it's like, okay, first of all, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing when we started doing this. We were kind of running by the seat of our pants. Second of all, I am re-editing them meticulously, and I miss things because I'm a human being, damn it. So I have actually decided I'm going to keep listening back to all of the episodes and then editing them, but I'm not going to make them perfect, partly to spite the people who hate us for no reason, and partly because I think that the show is conversational, and if I cut out all of the awkward and, like, the likes and the ums, if I cut out all of them, and it doesn't sound like it did when we had these conversations.
Yeah, fuck you for listening.
No, we love you all. You're all amazing. Magellan, do you want to turn it back to wait? When did these guys exist? You want to turn it back to June 30th, Magellan and Allen?
Oh my god.
Of last year?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
They're gonna talk about Jeremiah Crichton next. Have fun, guys. See you next week. Bye. Are we both referring to Jeremiah Crichton?
Oh, yeah, we are.
That's the right response. Season 1, episode 14.
So, this episode, I think, from what I'm getting from the background information, it's known to be bad.
Right, and you can blame that on the writer and director.
Who are?
Doug Hayes Jr. is the writer, and the director is Ian Watson, who I think has directed episodes before.
Let's just take a look
and
see if we've...
Yes, and they aired July 30th.
Here you go. So far, what we've seen from Doug Hayes Jr. is Till the Blood Runs Clear.
Oh.
Which was, that was a weird episode.
Yeah, and boy, is this a weird episode.
All over the place. And then Ian Watson has directed They've Got a Secret.
Oh, okay. I like that episode.
Which was... Oh, that was the Dargo roleplay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one of the best ones. The thing I was going to say, if you are at home keeping up with this podcast and you remember that I mentioned part of the like minor collection of reasons that we started watching Farscape when we did is that Daniel Riendeau, writer for the Polygon and podcaster, awesome person, put up a list on one of her blogs of her Farscape skip list because she's a huge fan of the show and says it's one of her favorite shows. And it's primarily a way to get through season 1, actually, because basically I read all of it, and it says, like, here are the episodes to skip, and here are the episodes to watch in season 1. It says some of season 2 is dumb, and then from then on, it's all gold. Season 3 is one of the best seasons of television, blah, blah, blah. So, hype. But season 1, a lot of it was, watch the pilot because you have to, skip some of the Rigel getting kidnapped episode.
Yeah.
Rhapsody in Blue was this is one of those episodes that's really goofy and isn't going to advance anything, but if you like the goofiness and if you like Zhaan, then give it a shot. Mm-hmm. And then which I think that episode was worth it. Yeah. I would recommend people watch it. Especially if you can give it your full attention and really appreciate. Yeah. There's a lot going on in it, but if you really give it up, like we don't always full attention viewing this show, so I try to, but it's hard. It's not the easiest show to just sit and watch, at least yet. I'm not utterly into it as I tend to get with shows like this after a while. Yes. But Jeremiah Crichton is actually on the complete skip list. Oh yeah, I believe so. And then what else? What else accompanies it? Do you know? I can check the list real quick. But the gist of it is that although Jeremiah Crichton was, I believe, in the skip list, everything after it is on the must-watch list. Gotcha. Everything. So we'll talk about what's coming up next week. But there's a lot. Sorry. God, typing and talking is hard. Do you know that? I can talk for a bit. How do you look for that? Yeah, so from what I understand from the background information and from what you're pulling up, this is a, quote, bad episode of Farscape. So I don't want to malign it too much. Like, I think our mission here is to find what was good about it. Yeah. But it was kind of bad, just laying that on the line. I guess I can start with my Translator Microbe minute here right at the beginning because they mention it within the first minute. Yeah, in the cold open. In the cold open, as a matter of fact. Which, weird cold open. Remind me? Like, very, very hasty. Yeah, I remember this. The depths of Moya, like, fixing something or doing something, and Dargo's like, Crichton, we gotta do this. Crichton. Crichton. The trick to doing a good Dargo impression is to, like, sound like you're getting punched while saying the first word. Yeah. But yeah. Pilot. Aaron. Also, to just say someone's first name. That's also good. Yeah. They're in the tubes, and they're doing something. I don't know. It's not important, but he needs Crichton's help doing something. And then John Crichton's like, I'm so tired of this alien stuff. It's not what I know. He just gives up. It's like, it's the equivalent of like Ben Browder walking out on the show. Like, wait, what? Yeah. And he's like, this isn't my technology. And Dargo's like, it's not my technology either. It's weird to me too. But Crichton just gets upset. And basically the equivalent of like, I need to go take a walk. But he like gets in his little spaceship. And where the microbes come in is Zhaan is like, Crichton, what are you so upset about? And I forget what he says exactly, but he yells some idioms at her. Like, what was it? Fed up. He's like, I'm fed up. Oh, and she's like, are you hungry? And you're probably going to say something about how what does that mean? Like, have you eaten
upwards, like, these translator microbes, blah, 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 blah. Which, that was cool to know that they translate idioms literally.
Yeah, it's a good little update for you.
Will they remain consistent with that rule? Who knows?
Why not?
We'll find out. So I was thankful that they mentioned it there, but I had a separate translator microbe question for you, Alan.
Ask it.
Because I really just want to dig into this. And it might not actually be that big of a deal, but when he's on the planet that he eventually gets to,
Okay.
and there is an essentially human culture there.
Yes.
They are like a mix of Mayans and Polynesian aesthetic.
Correct.
In terms of their clothes.
And their culture.
And their culture and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a part where he goes to the village elder, and all of these dudes are saying something in their tongue.
Yeah.
And then Crichton comes up and he like gives a greeting in their tongue. And the village elder is like, "Oh, you are learning our ways, John Crichton." But here's the question. If that is a word that means something, it would have been translated. So what they're saying is either complete nonsense, it's just a sound, or it's a very specific word that does not exist in English. Either way, it doesn't make sense as a greeting for an elder.
Yeah, I'm trying to... I mean, really, the Allen answer and the It's a Television Show answer is, it's very cool and interesting as a showrunner and a writer to have the, like, stranger in a strange land learn a language. But language is such an important part of the show that to just throw around, like, oh, and he knows their idioms. But, like, how is he saying their idioms? How are we hearing them? How?
Yeah, here's what
What's your theory?
Here's how I would justify it.
Okay.
If I were on the panel and I was in the audience. And I was like, in season 1, episode 14, Jeremiah Crichton, and I went on my spiel, I would say, well, that is actually a extremely formal and literary ceremonial version of their greeting. And so it doesn't have a strict translation, but it's more just you say it as a gesture or something. And so the formalism of it wouldn't translate, because it doesn't translate to just hi or hello. It's a very respectful, greetings, elder kind of thing.
Huh.
So that would be my answer to myself, but it's not fully satisfactory because it's making it up after the fact.
I can never, I think about it as I'm watching the episode, but I never pick up on the translator stuff that you do, and then...
I love looking for it because it's so annoying.
And it's never, I don't know if it'll ever get good, if they'll ever, they'll work it out. So they don't have to, because the show goes on without it.
Yeah, like it's things that I shouldn't spend my time noticing, but it's really entertaining to me.
Right.
Anyway, let's talk about the rest of the episode.
Well, just to wrap up the point I was making earlier from the Daniel Riendeau skip list. Basically, the skip list is, well, this is actually a watch list for season 1. Skip everything but these episodes.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of skipping in season 1. The ones to watch are the premiere, PK Tech Girl, DNA Mad Scientist,
sure.
They've Got a Secret, and The Flax.
Okay.
And it says, and then on from episode 15, Darker returns through the end of the season. Keep watching. And then season 2 has a few clunkers, notably blank, blank, and blank. So that means that Jeremiah Crichton is totally on the skip list. But we are now, we did it. We are past the worst parts of Farscape. I mean, we will be after we talk about this episode, but good for us.
That's cool.
Well, I mean, right, because we've been enjoying it enough that it's like, oh, if that was really the worst of it, then you really only go from here.
We talk about the other show a lot.
The show which must not be named?
That Buffy show.
Oh yeah, that one Buffy show with the Vampire Slayer.
And Buffy is a show that's bad at the beginning.
I thought you were going to say Buffy's a show that's bad, and I was going to end this call.
No, it's bad at the beginning, and I'm sure there are people who have skip lists of like, hey, don't watch the first season.
Yeah, which is not right.
And with that show, when we hit the point where it's like, hey, it's good now, we were like, okay, good, because we were ready for the show to get good. But with this show, what I'm feeling is people are like, oh, okay, it's good now. And I'm like, it was bad?
Yeah, was that supposed to be bad? Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think that's so good.
If it really can only go up from here, I'm ready to just be like, oh my god, Farscape, which I'm already at. Like, I enjoy just the, like, pulpy awkwardness of the show. So even if it's like, oh, they get rid of the pulpy awkwardness, and then it's just a good show, I'm fine with that too. I'm fine with everything. It's great. I'm not fine with this episode. I was, So we have to slog through this.
I didn't hate it. There was a lot that bugged me.
Exactly. I hated most of the first and second and third act. So, like...
Alright, so hit me with the plot.
So, yes, Dargo and Crichton are fighting or unblocking an event. Crichton gets mad. He says, screw you guys. And then he falls into a planet, or onto a planet. And they can't get, like, technology working near this planet for some reason. And so, well, we find out later why, which is that there's, like, a science block on it. But the weird thing is, and I was texting you about this, I always give Magellan like 1 or 2 texts while I'm watching the episode of like, this is a weird thing I've been noticing about the whole show. And this week it was like, the way that the show deals with time passing by is really interesting. Because one of the things I've noticed is like, how come the crew of Moya haven't like just all sat down and had a talk yet? And like, it's kind of implied that they have off camera. They know each other better than we are giving them credit for. But I still don't think they all like know each other very well, which is weird to me. Like in my head, canonically, they aren't intimately familiar with each other, other than the moments that we see. But then one of the other things that I keep noticing is like, how do we know how long it's been between episodes, and how do we know how long between cuts? And one of the craziest ones is this episode, where between the cold open and the rest of the episode, there's, I believe it's 3 months.
Yes,
3 months have passed, and so that's really just an excuse for Crichton to be. It's just enough for him to be ingratiated in the culture and to grow a sweet beard, which is not. It's not. It looked like bees on his face, like it's just a swarm of bees, and it's enough for the crew to be like, well, I guess Crichton's probably dead. Like it's exactly enough time for that, but not enough for it to be like, oh my god, decades. He lives there now, which I just thought was really interesting. So 3 months later, he's on top of the Farscape 1. He's fishing, and he catches a cool crab thing, which I guess is called a shakloon. And then a just incredibly attractive woman comes up to him, and she's all like, oh, do you want some food? And I'm offering food to people. And then we find out that there's a lot of things that seem benign when we see them, but then one of the village elders will be like, oh, she did that to you? Oh my god, she wants to have your babies. That's it. So she just like offers him food, and then he finds out later, like, that's her telling her she loves you. Dude. Yeah. Pretty sweet. Her name is Lashala, by the way, for future reference.
Yeah, which kept reminding me of Black Panther.
Oh yeah, Black Panther's awesome, and it kind of almost clicks in with the culture of these people.
In that it's like a very surface level, Western centric interpretation of
tribalism in African culture.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been some good Black Panther stuff that's more in depth, but
yeah, sure.
My least favorite character of the episode then comes in, which is Rokon, who's just a handsome shirtless black guy. That's what he is. Yeah, and it's cool. I don't think we've seen black people on this show yet. Or people of color, really, at all.
You might be right. But that's because we haven't seen a lot of like, human people.
And he's not human, but I mean like human actors.
Right. Because we saw plenty of people of color in the previous episode.
So now this is getting me to think about, like, what is Christ? What's the actor that plays Christ?
Oh, I think he's Hispanic.
That's awesome.
Or no. Maybe he's... Because this is an Australian show, so maybe he's,
Australian?
No. Like he's Polynesian or something.
Oh, maybe. Hold on, now I want to know. I'll look it up later.
Yeah, I'll look it up now.
Thank you. All right, then I can just do plot then. How about that?
Yeah, Howie. You do that.
So
we got a handsome guy, Rokon.
So a handsome guy gets really mad that this lady, Lashala, is hanging out with Crichton because he's like, no, but I love you, and I don't like Crichton because he's getting into our culture and he doesn't deserve to be. He's an outsider, which is weirdly racial. A lot of this episode is like weird racism, kind of has like subtext to it, but it's never. I never hated it. It just felt like that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
Then we get a lot of cutting back to Moya. So I felt like a lot of the stuff that was on Moya was my favorite stuff in the episode. Aaron's son and Zhaan get to hang out on this episode. Which have we talked about Whedon's Law on ScapeChatz?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I feel like I've spoken about it in a podcast before.
We may have mentioned it.
If we have, then we'll just reiterate really quickly. Whedon's Law is a concept that Magellan and I both like cooperatively started noticing while watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer a year or two ago, and it's basically this trend that one of the signs that a show has well-written characters and a good ensemble is that you can pair any of them together. It would be any two of them or any three of them or any X number of them, and you can get unique and rich conversation and dialogue out of that pairing.
Right. Or at least you get a situation that is completely different from what it would be if you had any other subset of the ensemble in that scene.
Right. So
because sometimes if you pair two characters, it results in them not having a lot to say to each other, which is just as revealing.
yes, which I had that conversation with someone recently. It kind of ties into real life social dynamics. If you're in a group of people and everyone's on their phone, and if you ever play the no phones game where everyone puts their phone in the middle of the room and if whoever picks theirs up has to like pay for dinner or whatever. A lot of times when I've played that game with people that I like am not close friends with, you start to notice that some people just, you don't have anything to say to them. Yeah. Like as soon as you take away the barrier of something to like a plot, or in that case like of technology between you, you realize that you're not actually compatible in a meaningful way. And so that's the negative of Whedon's law. But the positive is basically like whenever we see a new pairing on a television show, we can be like, oh, Whedon's law checks out if it works. And I think this one worked. The Zhaan, Aaron Son stuff. Yeah. That stuff was on fire. So Crichton goes to see the head of the people, and that guy's like, oh, so you want my daughter, right? He's like, I like literally built my house on the water so that I wouldn't have to interact with y'all unless I had to. And then Rokon sees that and he's like, why are they? It's that dumb thing. It's one of my least favorite tropes where when we're inside the hut, we see them like having a stressful, not fun conversation about marriage and being an outsider. And then as soon as it cuts outside and it's Rokon looking inside watching them, they're like giggling and like high-fiving. Not literally, but like they might as well be. And you're like, hey, we're buds. And he's like, I hate that they're buds. And I just feel like that's the thing I see so much.
Sure, but that's how people act. You know, that's how you perceive situations.
It is.
You always sort of add your own layer of like, oh, I bet they're like best friends now. They're having so much fun in there. Probably talking about me.
Oh, my girlfriend. But it's just weird that they visualize it instead of just internalizing it in Rokon's head. They like show it looking more affable than it was.
That's fair.
But I guess that's also just a like cinematic technique. Rokon's like mom ends up being sort of important. Her name is Nira. She's the high priestess, and he's like, she basically is the Jewish mom, where she's like, you gotta get married, honey. He's like, well, Mom, I don't think she likes me. She's like, you gotta get married. Your cousin got married. He's like, but Mom. It's a lot of...
Also, great casting on those two, because they had, like, the same nose. Did you notice that?
Careful, Magellan.
No, like, he has a weird nose.
That's true. And she does a lot of eyebrow flaring, and so every time she does that, her, like, nose pops out, or, like, her nostrils flare up, too, and you're like, whoa, yeah. That is true.
Don't come at me like I'm being racist. He has like a weirdly sharp downwards, he's like a vulture. You know what I mean? Like a weirdly curved down beak nose.
I just kept thinking
she had the same nose.
I just kept thinking he looked like Isaiah and Mustafa, the Old Spice commercial guy. Can I just?
That's because he was shirtless.
And black. So it turns out I'm racist. Whoops. Hit the racist alarm.
Also, just to get this all out at once, I looked up Lani Tupu, who plays Crace.
Okay. Great name.
He's of Samoan descent.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I don't get enough Samoan actors. I just want to say, on the Farscape Encyclopedia Project, the caption for Rokon's page, like the caption under his profile picture, is just, it's him like looking deceptively to the side, shirtless as always. It just says, he just wants the girl. Who writes these? Which user do I have to get in contact with in regards to these? But yeah, so we cut back to Moya, and they're all really sad because they think that they've lost Crichton forever. And Zhaan is really like, all right, he's dead. Let's go. What's that?
Yeah, Zahn's ready to give up the search.
And then,
which is a little weird.
Aaron is like, no, he's cute.
Yeah, this episode I think would have benefited a little bit from the Flax and Rhapsody and Blue being in the same order.
Oh yeah,
or being in the
Zahn's actually
correct
made
order.
More sense.
Well, because Aaron's desire to find him did Aaron want to find him, or was she also ready to give up?
I think Aaron wanted to find him.
So that would have made more sense because they would have just made out.
Right.
And Zhaan would have had a little more time to stop caring about the fact that John Crichton saved her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, did we say that these are the last episodes that are out of order?
Yes.
At least this season?
Yes.
Okay. Zhaan wants Rigel falls onto the planet. It's the thing that happens. Mm-hmm. Zhaan wants either her or Aaron to go down to the planet and find Rigel and Dargo. Yeah, Dargo and Rigel are both on the planet at this point, so they get to have their own little mini buddy cop adventure, which I liked.
Mm-hmm. They're a great duo.
Oh, and then Aaron says, while Zhaan was more agreeable as a priest, Zhaan tells her not to go there, and there are some lines we should never cross. So, like I said, lots of good dialogue between the two of them in this episode. Crichton gets ambushed by some guards. This is actually a pretty easy episode to summarize because things like make linear sense. There's only an A and a B plot, really. The people capture him and blah, blah, blah. It's more jealous marriage talk. I really liked where this episode went, which is why I was saying like I sort of liked the later acts more than the beginning acts.
Yeah.
Because if it started out as and this is what I was telling you, which is why I thought that people don't like this episode, is it has none of the character development in it has to do with the people we know and care about. It all has to do with the people on this planet.
Right. And it's all set off by John Crichton acting in a way that he doesn't usually act.
Acting extremely out of character, yeah.
Yeah.
So then the resolution is he learns to trust his friends more and appreciate them. But it's like, we already thought he did. We didn't know that he didn't until this episode was like, no, he gets pissy mad.
Yeah.
So that was basically my complaint of it. But essentially the conclusion that he finds is that shirtless black guy's mom, Rokan's mom, Mira, look at me remembering names, is keeping herself in power and keeping the people from having any of their technology work, which is why they are still living in a primitive world, and which is why no ship can get onto the planet, and which is why when Rigel lands, he can't use his cool, sweet hover scooter. There's a transmitter somewhere on the island that is keeping technology from working, so she's basically subjugating the planet. And why? Is it just because she's a bad person?
I think it's just a power thing.
Right, she can stay in power because they can't build anything.
Yeah, and it's not just her, the priest.
Oh, it's the priesthood, yeah.
And she just happens to be the current head priest.
Right. So then the episode sort of shifts to the Dargo and Rigel plot, which is basically that once they arrive there, Dargo, as he always does in every off-planet episode, gets captured. Gets beat up and captured because he just can't not get angry. Rigel is walking around I don't know, I can't float around. And then they start bowing down to him and he's like, what is this? And they're like, I really liked the Dargo, or the Rigel stuff that happened in this episode.
Yes. Rigel was my favorite part of it, I think.
Because it's not just comedic. It is really funny for them to bow down to him and he's like, oh, this is weird. But he doesn't do the I'm not a king. I don't deserve to be a ruler. He totally gets into some of it where he's like, yeah, sweet. I think he says, I'd love to be your sovereign. I am your sovereign. I'm not your deity.
Yeah.
Don't sacrifice me or sacrifice blood things to me because I can't do God things. If you want to praise me and put a crown on me and make me the Lord of everyone, that's really cool and I'm down for that.
Yeah, he has his own tiers of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he was so helpful in this episode.
Yeah,
I love it when he's helpful. It made me happy in the Flax, and it's making me happy here.
It's because they can use his skills to progress the plot finally, instead of just because he can't be physical, obviously. Although, speaking of Rigel being physical, there were some sloppy editing choices in regards to Rigel.
Whatever. Oh, you're talking about the
don't give me the whatever.
I thought you were talking about all the CG.
The CG stuff is just whenever there's a long shot of him walking, it looks terrible. Whatever, we know that. But there's a scene where he's first finding out that he's a god, and he's like, what? What, blah, 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 blah. And it's a long scene of him talking. For that entire scene, and I don't know if it's we are watching it at a weird resolution or something. We just watch it on Netflix.
Oh, that might be what it is.
But we're not watching it in HD. That's not an upscaled version. But for some reason,
are we watching it in widescreen?
No, we're not.
Oh, well then they just fucked up.
Then they just fucked up, and the puppeteer for Rigel is just in the frame the whole time. Not just his arm, and part of his face. I know what that guy looks like now. Yeah, and it's awkward.
Oh, it was so sloppy.
It shatters the immersion. Because you just, see Rigel's mouth moving with the guy's hand, bobbing. And you're like, oh, no, keep it out. I don't want to see it. And it's just, guys, how do you let that? Who's editing your episodes? Come on.
Well, who's directing? Who's framing that,
A bad cameraman.
Yeah. That was just...
Get your shit together, Ian Watson. Come on.
Bad news.
So he finds out that he's a god, and that they treat him like a god, and basically he says, no, don't do that. And then they're like, wait, we need to prove it. So we're gonna make you do a magic thing. We're gonna ask you perform a miracle or something.
So they're like, you're a god, yay, and that's the act break.
Yeah,
essentially. And then he's hanging out in the tent being their god, and Dargo's like, we gotta get out of here. We gotta figure out how to get out of here.
You have to leave.
Yeah, and then Rigel's like, they keep talking about, I don't know what he says, the ceremony or something. It's something vague like that.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. Can I just quickly comment on the fact that sometimes it annoys me when science fiction shows expect me to memorize an entirely new vocabulary every episode, and this episode had a lot of that.
Rhapsody in Blue had a lot of that too.
That's true. But that stuff was related to Zhaan.
Right.
Like, it's terminology that is part of her backstory and her character. This is like, there's a word for the leader, and there's a word for this thing that we're doing, and there's a word for this and that, and it's all stuff that's going to go away in the next episode because we're never coming back to this planet again.
Well, because it's all proper nouns, too. Like, Zhaan stuff is like melding and fusion and bonding. Like, these are words that we understand and we can intuit, but when it's like, oh, I can't even remember. I can remember none of them.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Just the Timbala and the statue of the god.
Yes, that was one of the words. The Timbala was their sacred text, right?
Yes. It's like yes. And then someone says, like, oh, every religion has a sacred text, I think.
So Rigel's in the tent, and he's like, they're talking about this, the ceremony that they want to do. And then the priest comes in and is like, hey, how's all your baths and all of our women treating you? He's like, it's great. Oh, by the way, for the ceremony, I'm going to need the sacred text. And she's like, oh, yes, of course, here's the sacred text. And he's like, great, thanks. And it's in Hynerian, his language, or ancient Hynerian.
Right.
The equivalent, I guess, of his species Latin.
Yeah.
Basically.
The dead language.
Yeah. And so he's supposedly able to read it. And within it, he finds the information that this people used to be a part of his empire, which was weird because he just kind of guessed that earlier and turned out to be right.
Yeah, he did.
Which he based it entirely on the fact that two rocks lined up to look like his face, which is what they were basing their worship of him on. And so that seems like the kind of
religious thing, though.
But that seems like the kind of thing that he'd be like, oh, I bet I used to rule these people. And it's like, no, Rigel, stop it.
Yeah.
But then that turned out to be right, and it was just, is weirdly neat.
The show has handled religion better, and like faith specifically.
Well, not even that, just the plot contrivance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that struck me as the kind of thing that you would suspect in the first act, and then be proven wrong.
Yeah, and then at the end it's like, oh no, it was actually...
But it's like, oh, hey, yeah, this is ancient Hynerian.
Yes,
I
was
can read
right.
This. Got it right. Yeah, it turns out they used to be part of my empire. And then he's talking about how they were intended to be sent forth by one of his ancestors as envoys of the empire.
Yeah.
But then they kind of didn't work out. And so the ancestors were like, we're just going to trap them on the planet that they're on.
That's what it was. And that's why the priests...
Just cuz. And yeah, so the priests took advantage of that situation by saying like, oh, well then in that case, let's make up all this stuff about how there's a savior that's going to come and save us and lead us off the planet, and blah, blah, blah. And use that as a way to control the people, essentially. Okay, so we got 3 problems.
Okay, rock 'em.
Here's my first problem.
Problem 1.
Or, we'll start with a question. We won't say it's arranged in 3 problems. We'll just say I have a series of questions for you. Okay. So, Nira,
yes.
Right? She is the leader of the priesthood.
Yep.
Does she know that the mythology of their religion is bogus?
I think so.
Okay. So, take that as yes.
Okay.
We know that.
Yeah.
Why, then, is she shocked when, in the tent, John Crichton's like, they want you to perform a miracle or they're going to kill us. And Roger's like, oh, I can't perform a miracle. And then she's there like, uh-oh, what did you just say?
I thought she was faking it there.
You did?
Maybe. That would be an answer.
But then why would she need that to tip her off if she already knew that he was bogus?
Well, then that brings up an interesting question about the overall plot of the episode. Is if they didn't know and they're ignorant to the whole thing. So then let's try and follow the other pathway. It's like a choose your own adventure of Farscape bullshit. Let's say that she didn't know that this was nonsense.
Yes.
What's your follow-up question then?
My follow-up question then is I don't know that there is a follow-up question then, because it doesn't make sense that she wouldn't know. Because she knows. So even then, let's assume that she thinks that he is the savior guy, meaning that he should be able to read the book,
yes,
the sacred text,
yes.
Which means that she would know, if she knows what's in the sacred text, that he would find all the stuff that's like, oh, the priesthood is making some stuff up. So why would she give him the book? It doesn't make any sense, right?
It doesn't. How does this keep happening? How do you keep finding these things every episode?
I don't know.
Is that where people say that this show is bad? Is that these episodes are bad? It's just that you can't.
No, because that happens with a lot of if you dig at plots enough, most plots collapse.
Right.
Because I forgot to bring this up, but the way that you unravel Rhapsody in Blue is I'm already forgetting her name because it doesn't matter anymore.
Pauline.
Why doesn't she just get a gun?
Oh, you said that to me.
And use a gun to kill the people that she wants to kill.
Well, they probably don't have guns on Delvian planets because they're non-violent. But
not.
if they're non-violent, then why does she want to kill? Anyway, get to the end of the plot. Let's marathon to the end of the plot.
Yeah. So anyway, there's some issues. Where were we branching from? Oh, so yeah, Rigel is learning all this stuff from the sacred text, and he's like, oh, secrets. And then I think I said this already, but John Crichton is talking to L'Shala.
Something like that.
Is that
L'Shala?
L'Shala.
Yeah.
And she's like, he's got to lead us off this planet.
Yep.
And he's like, your religion is wrong. And she's like, you're wrong.
And then they kiss. Wait, Rosh.
No. And then he goes back to the camp, and he's like, Rigel, this is a problem. And then Rigel's like, I can't perform a miracle, John. And then Nero's like, oh, uh-oh. And then they try to kill all of them or something. And then Crichton gets a brain blast where he says, yes, by the hands of the Savior, lead to the light, or whatever it was. And then it turns out that Rigel's hands, when he presses them against the rock, expose the device that has been draining power from everything.
Right, he puts his handprints on the rock.
Here is another question for you.
Ask it.
So the priests made up the prophecy.
Okay.
Is the point that the prophecy came about by total happenstance, or did the priests purposefully, in this roundabout way, describe how a Hynerian would turn off the thing?
I think it's the roundabout way.
Okay. I guess that makes sense, but that seems like the kind of thing that John Crichton shouldn't have to be figuring out on the spot. It seems like the kind of thing where they'd heard the prophecy, and then in the book it's like, hey, so that prophecy means this. Just to level with you.
I just think my main issue with that part of the episode is it feels almost Deus Ex Machina-esque. Like he solves it through a brief shining moment of ingenuity, and that fixes everything.
Yeah, and so then Rigel's chair turns on, and everyone's like, oh, he really is a god. Oh, this is amazing. And he's like, no, I'm your sovereign. And then they're all leaving, and they get a lot of food. And Rigel has a weird interaction with the chief guy where he's like, we made you some of this bacon. This weird space bacon. Yeah. And Rigel's like, oh, this is good space bacon. And the guy's like, yeah, it is. It's
Shockloom jerky, by the way.
Thank you, Shockloom jerky. And
by the way, new band name? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great name. Mm-hmm. And then John Crichton says goodbye to his island friends. And
he's been with
he and Dargo gear up to leave. And then Dargo says something about, was it worth the trouble or something? And then John's like, what trouble? And then leaves. Which is a line that doesn't make sense. But it's a reference to a line from the Western that this is based on.
This is based on a Western?
Yeah.
Whoa, I didn't look at any of the trivia for this, so that's new to me.
It's based on Ben Browder's favorite movie, or one of his favorite movies, Jeremiah Johnson.
Oh, I have heard of that.
Which is a movie film directed by Sidney Pollack and starring Robert Redford as the title character, and Will Geer as Bearclaw Chris Lapp.
Oh, man.
It's, they don't have a short description.
From 1972.
On the Wikipedia page. From 1972, Jeremiah Johnson. Synopsis. I'm guessing it's a typical white guy goes to live with the natives.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen images from this film. There's a shot of Robert Redford with hunting gear and a spear. That's pretty iconic, I guess.
A Mexican-American war veteran, Jeremiah Johnson, played by Robert Redford, heads to the mountains to live in isolation. Woefully unequipped for the task at hand, Johnson is fortunate to come across a seasoned mountain man, played by Will Geer, willing to teach him the necessary survival tactics. As life continues in the mountains, Johnson finds himself a native bride, played by Del Bolton, and an adopted son, played by Josh Albee. However, their peaceful existence is threatened when Johnson incurs the ire of the Crow Indians.
Oh,
so it's similar in the sense that it's he's an outsider, and he earns the affections of somebody who's part of the culture, and then that makes everybody else mad.
Right. That film has such fascinating Native American names as paints his shirt red, and Chief Two Tongues. So, that movie's from the 70s. I think that basically the gist of that Dargo line, besides being a reference, is that Crichton's like, oh, I have a lot of things I want to tell. Like, I'm really sorry about all the crap. And then Dargo's like, don't worry about it. We're good. We're buddies.
Yeah.
So they can...
Dargo was good in this episode, too. He's like, come on, man. Like, you really think we would just abandon you?
He's like, I guess not.
I guess I didn't think about that. So you were saying that you're souring to John Crichton? Is that...
I don't know. It's just the way he ingratiates himself with that culture. He's like, no, I'm cool. I don't want to, like, be there. But then as soon as someone gets, like, steps up to him and gets mad at him, he bites back. Like, he's a very type A type of sort of character.
Yeah.
In that as soon as somebody, like, doubts him. Like, I feel like if I got into, like, a bet with him, he would, or, like, a progressively escalating contest, he would win just by, like, stubbornness. Mm-hmm. Which is more a character detail. But it's like, if I were to know John Crichton in real life, I wouldn't like him. It's not like he's a bad character, you know?
Yeah.
That's really...
I think, because I always forget that he's an astronaut, and so he's like a super smart guy, and he's like the best of the best, basically.
And that explains why he's good with technology and with equipment and intellectual stuff. But then it's also like he has a little bit of Southern in him, like his accent comes out in some lines, and I don't know, he's a weirdly unlikable character for me still a little bit. John, could you do me a huge favor?
I sure can.
I wanted to make this sexual and gross, but no, wrong podcast. That's for our X-rated sex podcast that we don't record and doesn't exist. It's called ScapeChatz. Give me background information, you sexy swine.
I will. So as I was just saying, this movie is based on Jeremiah Johnson.
This movie is based on.
This episode is based on the movie, and it was David Kemper was at Ben Browder's house for dinner.
Ooh.
And Ben Browder's wife was talking about the movie, and then David Kemper was like, "Oh, we can make an episode like that."
That's
and
what.
The next morning, he's like, "I got the perfect plot." And his quote is, "Crichton goes native, lives among the people, and grows a beard." The next morning, I had the story in my head.
I think that shows, though, in the episode, is like he had that, and then he had to write the rest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More background info for your
sorry. They're talking about how the clothing is based on Earth tribes.
Sure.
Which, yes.
What was the two colors? It was like
two colors.
It was like purple and orange was everybody's outfit.
Yeah. There was like turquoise and purple or something.
Yeah. No, there was definitely orange.
Yeah. I thought the costumes were fine.
Yeah.
I think on aliens they would have been cool, and on people it was just like, what are you doing? I don't know. It bothered me that they were humans.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Not on the podcast.
I know. I'm just telling them that you told me that.
Okay. Yeah, it just felt super easy.
And then I was saying, like, what do you want them to do? Put like they're gonna run out of alien masks at some point. That's budget right there.
But just do ears.
But then that's lazy.
Antenna or something. It's slightly less lazy than their people.
Okay. I guess you're right, Magellan.
I don't have to be right.
I guess you're wrong, Magellan.
Thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So we got that. The production was hit with a hailstorm.
Oh, no.
This episode marks... Yeah, that's all I had. The largest usage of the CG version of Rigel.
Oh, interesting.
This was due to the script not taking the puppet's limitations into account.
We really just have to point out, whenever the CG Rigel is on, not only does it look bad, but the camera is always like completely still and very wide. And it's just like, look, he's walking, mm-hmm. And he's on the other side of the room. He's on the other side. We did it. That's $1 million. It's like, it always looks like the monolith scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's like, guys, Rigel's walking. And it never leads to anything. It's just like, I get it, that was expensive, because CG was new, and it still didn't look good. But I digress.
This episode was considered one of the poorest, and made light of by the cast and crew DVD commentary, which carried the title, When Bad Things Happen to Good Shows.
Aww, sad.
Rocknius O'Bannon's one defense of this episode, which I agree with, is that it's a good episode for Rigel.
Yes. Totally.
And he actually has an interesting point here, which is that the development that Rigel has is that he is treated with the respect and deference that he has been thinking throughout the whole show that he should be getting.
Yeah.
And he's like, something's not right here. I thought this would be cool, but this isn't cool.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
They finally give him what he wants, but then they give him too much. And he's like, no, I didn't think I wanted it. I thought
this is bad. don't do that.
Precisely.
Yeah. And that's it for the background info.
All right, guys, we did it. We survived apparently the worst. And now it's only all that's left is the best. And I have some insider info that the next couple episodes are going to be really, really exciting. Can I give the fans and potentially you, if you don't already know, the thing that I heard about next episode?
Please do.
We are supposedly getting a new addition to the main cast next week.
Oh, hey, that's that one character with the face and the hair.
Yep, that's the one. The character with the face and the hair. We're not even going to say their name.
Who I'm talking about.
We're not even going to say anything. Guys, just get hype, I guess. John, can you help them get hype and tell them what these episodes are about and what they're called and just all sorts of fun things?
I really could do that for you.
Good, I'd appreciate it.
I could.
For me or for them? Because they are more important.
I'll say it's for them, but it's for you.
Aww.
And I will do that by finding on Netflix this show. That's what I'll do. Oh man! And when I do it,
I'm looking. The thing is, I'm looking at them because my phone is fast, and
I always forget that I do this part. I'm sorry.
I should have given you more time. That's fair.
No, and now I have it up, but it's not loading properly.
Of course. FK off. Do you want me to do them this week?
No. I enjoy doing. You should do them. They're not loading.
You not on your phone or your laptop?
I haven't tried on my phone. That would be a whole another minute of vamping.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna give it.
I'm gonna try it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna try it.
Do the first one.
Okay. Least. Yes, that's fair. Next week we're watching season 1, episode 15. Durka returns, which I don't remember who Durka is. I think they're related to Dargo. Oh no! It says it right here.
Durka is the guy who.
Yeah.
I got it up.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Can I read this one?
Yep.
A peacekeeper commander who once tormented Rigel in prison resurfaces after his mind has undergone a mental cleansing. Or has it? Dun dun plot.
So that's from PK Tech Girl.
Yeah, I remember that. The guy that he saw him and then he was like, "Screw you, I hate you, Mr. Guy who tortured me." Mm-hmm. Yep, that guy's back. That's exciting. And also we're gonna get the introduction of a new character.
Yes.
Okay. What's episode 16?
Well, let me tell you. It's called A Human Reaction. Crichton returns home to find that the wormhole he traveled through never closed and that Earth has been vastly affected
Holy
by it.
shit.
Yeah, dude.
That sounds like an episode.
They just cut to the chase on this show.
That's fascinating.
That sounds good, right?
Yes, it does. Sorry, I thought you meant the loud dryer noise that I just heard. I don't think they hear most of the dryer noises unless we're talking, because I cut out low end sounds. Background information that they don't need to know. All right. This has been episode 7 of ScapeChatz. I've been Alan. Joan, thank you for doing another episode with me.
Hey, anytime, dude. Got
anything to say to the folks at home before calling it for this week?
I couldn't. So we were talking about this beforehand.
Knew you wouldn't.
About the idea of a sign-off phrase is, in some sense, repulsive to me.
Yes.
But only insofar as I can't come up with one that I like. Because yours is so good.
I know, and mine came out by accident. Like, the first couple times I said it, it was like the same joke that I bullshitted more than once, and I was like, well, now this is a trend. Now I have to do it. But it's so... I love it. I adore it, and I'm going to just try and keep it for as long as I possibly can.
I was saying that I want to just do something from the intro spiel.
Oh, right, the little...
Gives. A ship! A living ship!
Dun, 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 dun. We're being chased by a crazy space pirate.
Let me just Google Farscape opening monologue.
Opening monologue.
Is that what you would call it?
You can look up the... Do you think you can rap Genius, the Farscape theme song? Ow. I need to get this pop screen to be more stable. I did it. It's more stable.
No, I don't want to download the movie. I just want the script.
Download the movie, yeah. Let's just watch it right now.
Oh, here we go. My name is Zhaan Crichton, an astronaut. A radiation wave hit, and I got shot through a wormhole. Now I'm lost in some distant part of the universe on a ship, a living ship full of strange alien life forms. Help me. Listen, please. Is there anybody out there who can hear me? I'm being hunted by an insane military commander, doing everything I can. I'm just looking for a way home. So that's what I'll do. Every episode at the end, I will read that. I'll do it in a different voice.
Yes, perfect. I was about to say that. Okay.
Each time.
I will say what I...
That's the vanilla version.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you, John. And I will see you, dear viewer, next week in space.